At this time of year, we receive lots of plant samples within our offices across the state, either for plant identification or for disease or plant problem diagnosis. I wanted to share with you information that you need to provide to us when you send in samples or come into the offices to find out what the problem is. First, what I'd like to discuss is what you need to send into the office or bring into the office with you when you come. If, for example, this plant here is dying back from the tip, if you just brought in a leaf like this here and just sent that in and without the rest of the stem, then it would be very difficult for us to determine what is wrong with the problem or with the plant. In this case, the plant is dying clear back on the stem, and it doesn't look like there's a disease problem on this one, but if there were a disease on this one, then generally the disease is localized at the area where the dead tissue is and where the new tissue begins. And so if you don't send that portion of the plant into our offices, then we can't isolate the disease and tell you what the problem is. Some questions that you will be asked when you send the sample in or come into the offices will be, what type of plant is it? We may not know exactly right offhand what the plant is, and if you know what it is, that will be very helpful to us, because there are many plant problems that are specific to a plant species. And we can eliminate many problems right there if we know what type of plant it is. The other thing you want to be able to tell us is how long the plant has been planted in the ground. Has it been planted there for less than 6 months? If so, a newly planted plant who is suffering and has problems, it is more likely that those problems are going to be due to the way it was planted or the aftercare in which it has been receiving, rather than a disease problem. What are the symptoms? If you're talking to us over the phone, you need to describe the symptoms as best as you can. How long has it been occurring and when did it start? All of these kinds of questions will help us to identify the problems that your plant might be having. Other questions that we will be asking you are what kinds of chemicals have been used around the plant? Have you fertilized it? How much and what type of fertilizer have you used on it? Have you used any pesticides, or do you know of your neighbors using certain pesticides, especially herbicides, that may have affected your plants some? Where's the plant planted in the yard? If it's up underneath the eaves of a house, it could possibly be suffering from drought stress because it's not receiving some of the natural rainfall, especially if you don't have an irrigation system. Whereas if it were planted out in the yard, it may possibly be receiving more water. How do you irrigate? Do you have an irrigation system that's on a timer, and how often is it set? And how much water are you putting on? Or are you just watering it by hand? All of these kinds of questions you need to be prepared to provide us with the answers to when you come in and are looking for information about the problems that your plants have. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about was if you're going to send in a plant sample for identification. Again, if you just pick off a leaf or even 2 or 3 leaves and send that in to us, very difficult to tell you what this plant is. There are many plants that have similar shapes and sizes of leaves, and just by one leaf, it's very difficult to tell what the plant is. What you would want to do is probably send a small sample that includes the stems, the buds, the leaves, and in this case, even the flowers. These flowers are just beginning to open up, and this can tell us a lot about the plant. Flowers are very helpful, especially if we have to send it to a botanist to key it out, because that is usually where they begin when they key out a plant, is at the flowers. Again, provide us with information about the plant, where it's growing, how it's growing. Is it a woody shrub or tree, or is it an herbaceous plant? Where is it growing? Is it growing along the fence line or along the woody areas? That would tell us it's maybe a native plant and not a cultivated plant. Or is it something that you know has been planted around your yard? All of these things will help us to eliminate certain possibilities and determine what types of plants that you have.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.